Here we go.
Hey guys, Steve here, Ponics. Today we're going to talk about
growing with fishes. Growing with fishes.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very awesome episode 279. This is the very first time we've ever done back-to-back episodes 2 nights in a row. So definitely a first for the show. So super cool to have him on. James Welbourn is a super cool guy that I actually had a chance to meet out in Michigan. We had a bit of a schedule change up this week, so we thought, you know what, let's get him on. I was really stoked to get him on. And we were actually booked out pretty far, so I want to get him on right away. And it all worked out great. So we're super excited to have him on the show tonight. So thanks a lot for joining us, Jason.
Thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. He's got all kinds of cool talents and all kinds of cool projects he's working on. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. We also have Marty Waddell. Thanks for joining us, Marty.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good to have you on, man. We missed you last night. It was good times. We had a Jordan River from Growcast on and Brandon from Spectrum King. It was all kinds of fun. So
yeah, I just didn't know about it until late, so I had already had plans, so I couldn't make it last night. But yeah, appreciate you guys.
No worries.
Holding it down.
Yeah, it was very last minute change of schedule yesterday, so it all worked out.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, if you guys aren't aware, Marty and I, forgot to pull it up. There we go. Marty and I also have an online virtual aquaponic cannabis class. You can check it out at apmjclass.com. We have over 700 slides, all of them with recorded talks on each one, and a whole bunch of additional info on how-tos and insect guides, footage from commercial facilities, and all kinds of cool stuff. So check that out if you're looking for a more formal education on aquaponic cannabis. Or we're also going to be adding more soil information this year, so that it has a lot of additional living soil content as well. So really adding a lot more to the whole scope of the class. So regardless of what you're looking for, I think we're going to, by the end of the year, we'll have kind of all the content you're looking for there. So check that out if it's something you're looking for. All right.
And we also do 2 live sessions. I think we have one coming up this Sunday, right? I don't remember which Sunday it is. Either this Sunday or the next Sunday. Yep. So yeah, we do that as well. So students can come on and join a Zoom class, essentially just like this, and be able to ask questions and show their own grows and get advice. A little bit more one-on-one. So appreciate all the students that show up for that and interact. We always have a great time. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun, and also gives us a way to learn about some of the problems that people are having that Marty and I don't run into, so that we can help, better round out the methodology for, all different types of growers and their backgrounds. So it's a lot of fun and very educational for us as well at the same time. So really appreciate working with the students all the time. Marty and I are constantly replying to different students a couple times a week with their different issues with their home grows and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun to help kind of work with people as they go through their educational journey in cannabis. Speaking of which, I just wanted to give you guys a quick shout out before we really get into it. So this is the very first guy that I learned from on cannabis. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video I Grow Chronic, and I'm just gonna put this guy up on the screen like a screenshot. But I don't know if you guys remember this dude from I Grow Chronic. Used to dye himself green.
Green guy. Yeah.
So he disappeared for like a decade and just released some new content like in the last couple of months. I hunted him down. I finally found his phone number through a whole bunch of Google foo that would probably take more time to explain than you guys care to listen to, and hunted him down. He's going to come on the show here in a couple of weeks, sometime probably end of March or beginning of April. And he was the very first video content I ever watched on cannabis. I've read all kinds of books from Jorge and Ed and all the rest of them, but he was the first video I watched on how to grow weed. So it's going to be a really cool episode coming up as well. Thanks a lot, James, for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? I know we had a huge a blast of a time out there in Michigan. Your stuff was incredible. You had all kinds of amazing herbs. So was really excited to get you on and to have you tell us a bit about your wizardry that you're doing.
Bro, it was so great hanging out with you. None of that was mine. I did not. I flew in from Canada, so that was all Michigan and driven in, and there were so many great makers out there, and I was blown away by the crowd and the quality, and I made I feel like I made a ton of lifelong friends. So it was super great. It was great to reconnect with you. I think the last time we saw each other, we were at a movie premiere in LA for with Rosario Dawson and Cory Booker.
Yeah, actually, that was a fun night. We had a nice little smoke sesh there on the balcony with that Cannagar, and all kinds of interesting people were out there. Paul Stamens was there.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. So no, I thanks so much for having me on your show, man. I think it's so cool that you've been doing something like this for so long. I actually just started doing a resin show focused more on the solventless world myself with a couple of friends, and we just did 20 episodes a couple nights ago, and it was a big deal for us. So we were really stoked about it. So yeah, this is it. It's kind of snowballed into something, but we're really proud of it. And we just like to bring on a maker every day, or not every day, every week, and we like to go down the rabbit hole, not only about their techniques, but as well as them as a person and where they came from, and where growing up and the life experiences that they had shaped what they, how they turned out as a maker. And so I think it's really cool. Shout out to Shiragam from the Hashish Inn, that kind of showed me that this was possible. I really took a lot of inspiration from him, and we had him on as one of our early episodes, and definitely feel like he kind of blessed us and okayed us to move forward. And so, really having a lot of fun with it. We've got Real Deal Resin on Sunday, so I'm super excited about that. And we just had a really cool episode with Ross Kaya Paul from Pacific Northwest Roots yesterday. So that was a ton of fun, and Ross Kaya is always a fucking awesome guy. So a little bit about me. I started touching the plant in 2007. I really got involved with cannabis. I fell kind of head over heels in love with it in university. It was I got associated with it a little bit later in life, but when I did find it, I sort of fell pretty hard, and knew that this was something that was going to be pretty much a constant in my life. And I was always the kid who had problems sitting still and focusing, and was on all different types of medication for ADD, and the problem kid, and finding cannabis was really something interesting for me as I quickly started using it habitually as a tool, and found a lot of relief in it. And so I started cultivating pretty seriously in university. And when I came home from university and kind of came clean to my parents about what I had been doing for beer money, that was 2012, and they weren't too thrilled with my chosen career path. And so after some discussion, I ended up working in commercial real estate, and I did land development and downtown office leasing in Calgary, Alberta. And that really allowed me to cut my teeth really quickly in the corporate world. I really enjoyed it because I didn't really have a boss. It was a very much a eat what you kill atmosphere. And, if you didn't work, you didn't make money. And sometimes you would work and not make money. And I kind of liked it like that. And I excelled there. And so after a while, the fast-paced lifestyle of commercial real estate was really wearing on me, and I realized it wasn't something I wanted to do for any type of long term. And if anybody knows anything about commercial real estate, it's not something you get into for a short period of time. It's something that you get into to build your book of clients, and they continue to roll over through the years, and then you continue to make more and more money. So leaving commercial real estate after 4 or 5 years is not something that you often see people do. And I just got to the point where I wasn't liking the person that I was in the mirror. And so I walked away and sold my book of business to my partner, Chris Hong, who's an awesome individual. And I've got nothing but great things to say about him. And he's still, working in that industry. And I took a bit of a walkabout and tried to understand really what I wanted to do. And it was actually my mother who suggested that, cannabis is legalizing, and I take a look at that. And that really is a full circle thing for my mom. And I've got a lot of respect for her to this day for, turning around her views. And so I remember in late 2015, early 2016, I think, I sat down and wrote 400, 500 emails to all these different publicly traded or new startups that were getting put together for what would be the suspected upcoming legalization in Canada. And, I think I got 3 responses that will keep your, resume on file. And realistically at that point, these companies were just, one Brad and one Chad and a fancy glossy pitch deck. And there wasn't really any need for any cannabis knowledge. And so I was really offering something that they didn't value at all. So I ended up getting hired by a group called Radical Cannabis. And they're quite a success story here in Canada. And they were working on their retail program. At that time, they were thinking that they wanted to be first to market with retail. They ended up holding off on that. And now they're actually the ones responsible for cookies coming to Canada. And so I helped them secure a number of retail locations across Western Canada, dealing with B and C brokers, and sort of just herding cats. And I was still very far away from what I felt like legal cannabis was, and I wanted to be as close to the plant as I could be, without actually being in the grow room. Even though I like being in the grow room, I don't want it to be my everyday job. I want it to be my passion and my hobby. And so I quickly realized that wasn't the place for me. And I got approached by a established small publicly traded company that was building cultivation and extraction facilities in British Columbia, Nevada, and California, to come on as their vice president of business development. And this was your quintessential group of individuals that had no experience in cannabis, had no interest in cannabis. Cannabis was not a part of their lives. This was a reverse takeover of an old mining company shell. And the minute that they attached the word cannabis to it, their market valuation went from, somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million to somewhere in the neighborhood of $220 million over a matter of months. And so when that happens to a company will leverage that valuation and raise or secure capital through various number of means. And so they had a bunch of money that they said, okay, well, we're a cannabis company now, we need to spend it. And so they went out and purchased a few licenses and didn't really know what they were doing. And so I came in as the resident cannabis guy, and I also came in as the only dual citizen on the team. So this was a time when legalization had just happened, and there was still very much uncertainty around Canadians' ability to travel to the US when working in this industry. And so I was able to move.
Do you want to touch on that for 2 seconds? A lot of people don't know that a lot of Canadians were banned for life from the United States, simply for either owning, even something as simple as owning stock in a cannabis company and the Border Patrol finding out about it somehow. But if you were involved in the thing and listed as a CEO or a CFO or something else that was listed on like LinkedIn or something else that's going to get, mined by internet spiders and stuff, that shows up at the Border Patrol and they can ban you for that type of shit. And I myself know someone that was banned for quite a long time because of that as well.
Yeah, it was a difficult period where, travel's uncertain, traveling is always uncertain, but when you add that next level of uncertainty, it was just really uncomfortable. And it still is for a lot of Canadians, to be honest. But I was able to feel a little bit more comfortable and move a little bit more freely. Thankfully, my mom being from the US and my father being from Canada. And so I was really able to dive in, and that company gave me the opportunity to really understand cannabis on a much more macro landscape, where, seeing a facility get built in northern British Columbia and the ins and outs of the regulation, as well as the operational of just getting the materials up there. In early days, Canada had some ridiculous regulations. They still have some ridiculous regulations, but some even more wild and ridiculous regulations. And one of the regulations involved bank vaults, and needing to have bank vaults to secure your biomass. And so bank vaults immediately spiked up in price after Canadian legalization, and we actually ended up shipping one up from Seattle all the way to northern British Columbia, a 10-foot by 10-foot bank vault, and the shipping cost more than the bank vault, and at that time it was absolutely an exorbitant amount of money, but you had to do it. And shortly thereafter, the regulations changed, and you no longer had to do it. But it was being able to see those things, those regulations unfold, and the headaches that existed in Canada versus, we were building a 22,000 square foot cultivation and a 17,000 square foot extraction space, and in Henderson, Nevada, just outside of California, or just outside of Nevada, Vegas. And how different the regulations in Vegas were, and how differently things operated, and how some things were much smoother and some things were very, very, very much more difficult. And then there were some greenhouses in Riverside, California that were difficult and very remote to deal with, and were purchased sight unseen. And when I actually got out there, I quickly realized why the previous owners wanted to sell. But that gave me some incredible insight. I was able to meet some incredible people and network, and there was a tremendous amount of excitement in the industry. Steve, you were there, and it was a completely different time. And after that, I got approached by a gentleman to help start a vertical aquaponics farm, and I think that's when I first. Steve, you first came on my radar, because I was just dove right into it. And I grew up I spent a portion of my time growing up in the Caribbean, and I have a real affinity to the ocean and fish and fishing and just fish in general. And so the idea of being able to work for an aquaponics company and marrying those two things was really cool for me. And I kind of dove right in, and we worked with a fellow by the name of Gary Chapman, who was a leader in aquaponics, and I learned a ton from him. He had been part of the research team that in the 90s had gone and gotten a certain genetic of this Black Nile tilapia that he holds, and it was a really cool experience. I ended up moving out there for a year and helping that farm get started, and it was a really, really unique experience at a small family-run operation, and I ended up parting ways with that group and going on to form a genetics company with an ex-partner of mine, and we successfully deployed, I think, about 60 genetics into the Canadian space, and we're able to increase the genetic pool of which Canada has to draw from. Canada has a really unique program where you're able, or on how you're able to bring in genetic material, where they only allow you a one-time genetic declaration immediately prior to granting your license. So the way it works in Canada is you have to build your facility to completion prior to the submission of your application for licensing. And then once your application is received and approved, you'll be notified and you'll be asked for, among other things, a declaration of genetic material immediately prior to a date being assigned to your license being granted. And sometimes the date prior to that as well. It's on a case-by-case basis. But that allows forward-thinking companies and individuals to bring in large amounts of genetic material. But once they've brought it in, that's it. The doors are closed. And so they're reliant upon new market entrants or other market entrants who brought in other genetic material to trade and have commerce. And so there's a real opportunity there in Canada for people who have a deep understanding of genetics to really increase the gene pool. And so after parting ways with my last partner, I have started a consulting company here in Canada. And the name of the consulting company has just been recently sort of decided on as the Banyan Tree. The Banyan Tree is something that's near and dear to my heart. I grew up around a lot of big ones in the Caribbean, and they send their roots down from their branches, and it's actually quite a sight to see, and something that really resonated with me, and I think the community that I'm trying to help build. And so I work closely with groups like Emerald Mountain Legacy, and I help them establish themselves in new markets, specifically Canada. And once you're established in Canada, you're able to move beyond to any legal market in the world. Any country that has a medical cannabis program in place, you're able to now move your intellectual property, your genetic material, whatever it may be. You're now able to access those places. And so I see a tremendous opportunity for individuals who have been really focused on their state and optimizing, getting as much as they can out of the state that they're in. And I really think that taking some of these individuals' work or IP or brand that they've built and leveraging that equity and taking it somewhere where it could be moved not only to Canada but internationally is a tremendous opportunity. And so I'm really grateful to Ben and the Anderson family for trusting me with Emerald Mountain and the brand. I don't take it lightly. I've been following that brand for a really long time, and I think the work that they've done is very important. And I see their work in many other breeders' work, and for me that's a commendation of quality. And just coming back from Michigan and seeing the amount of really quality growers and breeders not only using the Emerald Mountain gear to breed with, but also to just cultivate. And so if you guys don't know the story of Emerald Mountain, it's definitely something I'd suggest you check out. GW Smoke Break and Daniel Montero did an incredible job putting together a little 8-part series about the history of Emerald Mountain Legacy and the story of Mandelbrot. And that's available on YouTube. We're just revising this website, so we're about to get all the links unage gated, so it'll be a little more friendly to the eye. But yeah, it's really cool to be a part of something like that and help promote this brand. And I see a tremendous amount of opportunity with other individuals that I'm connected with, and I think that Canada is often overlooked, being such a small population, less than what's in California. People don't really think that it's so big and it's not worth the effort. And in some ways I understand that, but that's your portal to the world. And so once you're in Canada, you can be anywhere, and that's not the case right now in the US. So really excited to bring some genetics and possibly some seed production up to Canada and the Emerald brand, and we've been really well received, and there's been a tremendous amount of interest. So it's really about finding the right dance partners. There's an amount of corporate white collar business that needs to exist within a federally legalized system, but it's really about banding together and trying to protect ourselves as community members of something that those people will never be a part of, because there's a morality that comes with being part of a community that is the same community that you feed yourself from, that is not a part of an individual who is not a member of the community from which he feeds himself from. And so I often remind people that, you know, we're playing with more rules than these guys. And so we're already at a disadvantage, and the way that we are able to level that playing field is communicating with each other. And historically, we've been a much more clutch and look type community, and we need to understand that we can't do that as much anymore because these mistakes are too costly and we're not making as much money as we used to be making. So we don't have the margins to fall back on these mistakes, and especially in legal cannabis. And so I've kind of made it my life's calling to not only just generally increase people's access to quality, but try and act as a connector in our industry for the people who use this plant every day. And this isn't simply a paycheck, to try and act as some type of connector to give these people a leg up in any way I can, because I've been put through the ringer in this industry, and you know, it's almost killed me. And if I can help, and you know, just anybody, and I know that's sappy as fuck, but you know, this community's done a tremendous amount for me, and I consider it, you know, my family. And so if I can do anything for good people in this community who are about the plant, like I've got nothing but time for them. So I'm really excited about the future, and you know, working with a number of different groups to promote their work and find different avenues of remuneration outside of what they're currently looking at. Like, I think that when I travel to the States, I see a lot of individuals that that are just thinking within the state. And I often tell them that, you know, you have to look up and see a bigger picture, that I think that there's a lot of opportunity beyond that, and guys building brands and you know, traditional market brands. And I just see so much value in the community that's around us. And like, you know, we just were in Michigan, and I just see, like, you know, there's so many great people I met out there that I'm like, yo, these are the guys, these are the lifeblood of the industry. And, you know, it's going to take a lot of maturing for that industry to recognize how important these people are. And I'm just trying to help it move forward. Sorry, that's my diatribe.
No, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the Mandelbrot. You had talked about that cultivar a little bit earlier. Tell us a little bit about that, because it seems like that's something that you're really connected to.
Absolutely. So, you know, what made Emerald Mountain Legacy different is back before 64, before any of the laws were put in. A lot of cultivators up in the Triangle were very aware of plant counts, and typically not going into the 3 figures. And Mandelbrot was born in the Midwest in a political activist family, and he was a free thinker, and he left home at 16 and moved out to California to grow cannabis. And he, you know, met individuals like Kevin Jodrey in the very early days. But what set Mac apart was Mac was opening up a tremendously large populations of Old Family Purples, Highland Afghanis, and a couple other things. To basically, he wanted to bring a gas profile to the coast of California that would finish early enough, be PM resistant because of the early morning fog, and hold a gas forward profile. And he was able to do that by making these crosses and searching these large populations and taking these tremendous risks. And, you know, he was always known as someone who took tremendous risks. And, you know, in doing so, he bred the Royal, and that plant, I believe, was bred, and I could be wrong, but I think it was bred in the early 2000s, and it's still relevant to this day. And so Mac unfortunately passed away in 2005 and left behind a family and a young son. And his brother Ben stepped in, and that changed from Emerald Mountain Seed Company to Emerald Mountain Legacy. And Ben has continued this, the directional breeding that his brother started. And, you know, so much respect to Ben in what he's done. And, you know, he's really been able to continue something for time. And he's made selections out of the Royal. He's crossed, you know, there's some Chem D and Chem 91 influences in the oil spill, and really kind of maintained his own thing. And I think that's, you know, something that I was incredibly attracted to when I approached Ben just to see if he would be open to working together. And so that to me is an incredible opportunity to tell a story. And in Canada, you are not able to have a brand that is associated with any type of identity that you, the license holder, builds in. And so the way that lawyers are getting around these things is that they're seeing the value in traditional market historic brands and leveraging stories from other markets that are less regulated and utilizing those brands in Canada where they can leverage those stories. And so, you know, there's just a tremendous opportunity here in Canada for a lot of brands, both in traditional brands, both inside Canada and outside Canada, to come over here. I mean, Indiva spent over $200 million on purchasing Wana brands, and, you know, Cookies has come through, like I said, Radical or Cannabis, and I think that's only the beginning, and we're going to start seeing more, and there's going to be a regenerative sort of pure, not a regenerative, but a more purist, true to the plant consumer base that is going to need to identify with something other than a fancy Mylar bag. And, you know, those are the people that I'm here to help. So, yeah, there's just a, you know, as beat up and tough as the industry is right now and stretched out in black and blue, there is opportunities, and it's really just about connecting and talking with each other and going to events and communicating.
I wanted to welcome Wes Engine. He just joined us while we were talking.
Big up, voting.
Do you have any questions for Jameson before we keep going?
Yeah, so well, first off, he said he was from the Caribbean, so I want to know which island.
It's a little island called Nevis. So
I know, I can see Nevis from island. I'm from Antigua.
Oh, okay. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
Nevis.
I can see Nevis from a house.
Oh, that's fucking awesome, man. Yeah, no, I grew up just at top of Shaw's Road, and that place has a special place in my heart. The first place I ever saw anyone consume cannabis, first place I saw a plant. Yeah, no, I got nothing but love for the Caribbean.
Right on. And so you said once you get breeding up here in Canada, so you'll be able to sell to all the other, like all the producers, your seed stock and all that type of stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I never knew that was possible. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm acting as the matchmaker to find the right licensed group that you're able to set that up with, and so I think that there's a ton of opportunity, and it really is just matchmaking the right groups and brands and individuals with the right people, and you know, a lot of snakes, a lot of landmines to navigate up here in Canada. It's not the difference between Canada and the US is the US legalized state by state, And so there was still that fear of federal illegality. And so you had a lot of hesitancy for certain people to get involved. Whereas Canada, it was a lights on, lights off. It's illegal, it's not illegal. And so everybody and their mom rushed in. And my finding is it was a lot of the people who were struggling to be successful in other industries and then quickly found success because money was literally falling from the sky. And it's taken a while for those people to get washed out. And it's still happening, but there's slowly improvements in the Canadian space. There's people from the traditional market that are slowly moving into legal market roles, and quality is slowly increasing. So I'm really happy to, see it trending in the right direction. It's not moving as fast as I want it to, but any movement is good movement.
Is there any particular cultivars you like to work with?
I smoke a lot of, I smoke hash mostly. And
Okay.
if I'm locked away in an island, I'm smoking GMO. My good friend at Canadian Dabs, he has hunted a fruit joy, which is a Barbara bud, and Barbara bud is a Canadian plant cultivar varietal here made by the Great Gardener, which is, I believe, a shishka berry cross. And shishka berry is another Canadian varietal.
Shishka berry is I've grown shishka berry before. That's a great strain.
Breeder Steve, shout out Breeder Steve. That's crossed to the papaya. So it's the barb to the papaya. And it is a really beautiful fruity strain. But right now in my personal garden, I'm growing the Royale with cherries, which is a Sky Jarro by Mean Gene from Mendocino, crossed to the Royal. And I'm just super, some of the fattest fan leaves that I've seen indoors under LEDs ever, which is really cool. Just for me, I really enjoy it. I'm really excited to see how she structures up. And then I'm also have some banana OG that I run that just makes good hash that puts me to bed at night. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but if you were gun to my head, desert island, jar for the rest of your life, I'm probably gonna take a GMO jar.
Nice. Good choice.
Now, what about yourself?
What's your island strain?
Who's that, me?
Yeah.
Man, you'd think I would know the answer to my own question, eh?
You asked this question yesterday. That's why I thought you'd have it ready.
I would say probably, if it just had to be one, it'd probably be like OG Kush or Sour Diesel or something like that. It'd be really, just had to, yeah, something like that. Something strong. Yeah. I would say Sour Diesel.
That's a good one.
Probably go with a G13 hash plant cross, or
yeah, that's a really good choice too.
A Super Silver Haze hash plant cross, something where you got those bigger trike heads, but that racier, work all day kind of high.
Yeah.
The amount of work that Bodie's done with that 88 G13 hash plant is it just speaks to the quality that's got to be there.
I have some seeds I got from Dragonfly with medicine of the G13 hash plant, an older line, and it is my favorite daily driver. I got 50 or 60. I just pop 3 or 4 of them wherever I'm putting roots down at, and I always find a nice female that just is really good to me. And yeah, that is my smoke all day weed.
I had a friend get me a cut of hash plant way back in the day. Would have been about 2000. And I had no idea what I had, and I grew it the first time through, and it just came out amazing. And then I let it go because I had all these seeds on it to look at, and I didn't keep the cut, and I've regretted it ever since. It is one of those things that I've just thought about. Fuck, but I just didn't even know how to clone in those days.
My other favorite strain I have is my blue hash, and I'm happy to I want to send a couple of rounds out. I know Mr. Green Jeans is doing another seed run of that. So he has two really good male cuts. So he does an open pollination with the two really awesome males and a couple of really badass females. And it's on like an F7 or F8 now that he's bred out. So it's pretty stable. I have a it was originally a Blue Dream crossed with Hash Plant, crossed with Afghan 1. And there was this amazingly heavy yielding Blue Dream cut that I got from work. So I just took a cutting from work, and then we crossbred it with an Afghan 1 that was really hashy and dumped well. And then with the Hash Plant, which was just, I don't even know the origin of the Hash Plant. It was just, I'm pretty sure it's Bodhi, because of the person I got it from. I know it gets a lot of Bodhi seeds, but it might have been something else. But I'm pretty sure it was a Bodhi Hash Plant 1. And then those 3 ended up making up the Blue Hash strain that I have now. And it puts out like tree trunk fucking stalks, like really heavy, thick stalks, like an extra 20% bigger than a normal plant. And it does really well in the wind. And she can put up with decent wind, even though she's all nugged up and without a bunch of supports. And she's, she does really well in the rain and storms and stuff. And you don't have to babysit her, right? You can put her outside, be kind of a newbie or grower, and it works fucking awesome. Like, and even if you don't, like, she'll yield well, even if you give her some structure. So, and just resistant to mold and, general insects, and just a really, easy to grow plant that you don't have to fuck with all the time.
Have you grown ice cream cake, Steve?
I have at a couple, ice cream cake and wedding cake, both actually. I found that there's still a little more phenotypical variation, especially you kind of have to tease out a good pheno to find stuff. Although I have seen some incredible stuff with ice cream cake in terms of like even plants that weren't the heaviest yielding nug wise were just coated off top to bottom in the top half of the plant in trichomes, like on the stalks, on the leaves, like all over the whole plant. Looked like they were like dusted or some shit. Like, you know what I mean? Which I always thought was a super cool trait of that and wedding cake. I've seen that more than any other strain on those two.
There's a few good cuts of wedding cake that are up here in the legal system, and that's just been one plant that I've kind of seen in multiple facilities do better than anything else that they're growing, and be really resistant to a lot of different growing practices or corner cutting that these large scale cultivators do. And it's interesting. There's the way that the Canadian system works is that the government has inserted itself into the supply chain. So if you're from Cali, the government is our distro, and there's only one distro in the whole state. And I'm talking every province being a state, would have its own different set of distro rules, but the distribution is run by the government, the provincial government. And so the provincial government is not staffing cannabis people. And so when they have 2 people come forward and say, I've got ice cream cake, and another person comes forward and I too have ice cream cake. If another person comes forward and says, I have ice cream cake to that provincial distributor, they go, nope, we don't even want to look at it because we have two different SKUs of ice cream cake. There's no way that your ice cream cake could be any different than those 2 SKUs of ice cream cake. So until those 2 suppliers of ice cream cake can no longer supply the province's need of ice cream cake, you're going to just have to wait. And so, of course, what happens is, you put it behind your back and you go, I've got animal face or animal cake or whatever you need to say. And so, unfortunately, the way that Canada's looking is that as far as anybody who's part of the culture and really derives a lot from the name of the varietal, we're likely going to get another layer of confusion because you're going to have Canadian companies, and rightfully so, I wouldn't blame them. We've all grown the same cut as another guy, and we've all seen ours grow better and we've all seen ours grow worse. And so, it's just really frustrating when you throw all these hurdles at these smaller scale traditional market guys trying to transfer in they get the money together, they build the facility, they get the investors off their back, they grow the weed, and then they say, like, for example, there was a group that released way too much black cherry punch. There's nothing wrong with it. It was a great cut. They just got giddy. They didn't, and they talked to too many people, and they gave it to too many people. And so everybody had black cherry punch, to the point where I knew a guy who was running a micro in British Columbia who grew black lime reserve. No. What was it was a Mean Gene's Black Lime Reserve, and it was too close in name to Black Cherry Punch, so he had to rename it even at that to get the provincial buyers to look at it. And so in Canada, we're just creating problems on top of problems because, you know, we have the government inserted into our distribution line. So you know, be very wary of strain names always, but when you come to Canada especially. That's kind of like, it's just until you have weed people designing these things, you're gonna have problems. Like, you've got guys in Canada who want to make high quality hash, and then they ask for a cold chain transportation guarantee through the provincial distributorship, and then the government says no. And there's nobody to go to. There's no like, okay, well, we'll start our own business and we'll do it our way. Like, there's not even that optionality. And so, you know, we've stifled our market. You know, in every other state that legalized, there was an early days where you were able to have a large amount of product variety to the consumer, to see what the consumer wanted and to spark interest in new consumers. And in Canada, you have to go jump through so many hoops and so many regulatory boards that you can't come with unique and small batch product offerings. You need to have, there's no ability to put 90U full melt on the market, because you would need so much of it, and to have so much of it on hand in case there's a reorder necessary to keep your spot in the chain, that it's just not feasible. And so we're swimming with a hand tied behind our back, but everybody is. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, woe is me up in Canada, and I work in different markets and I see different things. I just think that Canada is where I've got the most experience, and kind of, you know, probably where less people from your show have been on. And so I think that there's interesting opportunities up in Canada because of the regulations that are in place. You know, because we're federally legalized, we can be a springboard anywhere in the world. But because we're also the first G7 federally legalized, we have some pretty dumb fucking regulations. And so it's you know, it's a catch-22, but there's a lot of opportunity out there, and you know, just stoked to wake up every day and work in it, you know, and help people.
Well, especially with how the US handled the CBD regulations, that was super fucked. If anyone knows the drama around that and how the US basically tricked Canada to kind of screwing itself on that. But do you think that there's a chance that the Canadians are going to come back and do a revision on the regulations, or you think they're going to keep them pretty tight?
I mean, I hope that they would come back and do revisions. We really have very few examples in history of a government who has highly regulated an industry and then slowly deregulated it. But I just think that, you know, the Canadian government is going to need to see a loss of a tax-based loss. And I think that they'll only see that through federal legalization in the States. Canada has just absolutely fumbled an incredible opportunity to become a global leader in cannabis. And through poor leadership, oversight, and vision, they have just squandered an opportunity and you know, really put themselves at a disadvantage.
We'll add that list to the list of failures by Captain Blackface.
Yeah. Please do.
For those, yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry. One time, okay, maybe you were just not aware, but 3 times, okay. You can't deny that one. You certainly lose the right to call anybody else racist. That's for sure. Anyways, we've talked about that plenty on Fumi's show, which is a little bit different types of topics that we have on his show. So
Yeah.
But yeah. So what are some of the other different, maybe more popular cuts or cuts that you're working with currently there up in Canada?
Canada's strange. Like they're 3 to 5 years behind different markets, but really influent. Like it's so fun for me to watch because I'm quite immersed in cannabis culture, and there's definitely a California meme culture that somehow has influence on like minor decisions in the Canadian C-suite. And so as a genetics guy, I'll have conversations with them and they'll be like, oh, we need this and this. And I'll be like, where did you, because a lot of the demand is through these marketing groups in Canada is done by marketing teams that aren't raised in traditional cannabis settings and markets or they weren't involved in cannabis prior to being hired for this marketing group, and so they don't know how to connect with the consumer. And I think that there's a big disconnect because they're getting their data from places like Strainprint and other data sources that I don't believe to be fully accurate on real consumer trends. And so I see, Blue Dream and then Oreos. So like the dichotomy of what people want is all over the map. Originally in Canada, everybody wanted a high THC sativa, pure sativa, because they wanted, when they asked, do you want it energizing or do you want it like in a sedentary? They said, oh, I want energizing. And so, what people didn't understand is the flowering times involved to achieve these things, also the facilities that you would need, and the effects. A lot of people can't handle long flowering sativas. It took me years to be able to even be remotely interested in them. As early as 3 years ago, I would avoid them like the plague because I felt like I was going to have a panic attack and die when I smoked them. Now I'm interested in them. But people don't understand what they want, because when you're looking at cannabis from the outside in, it's such a sensory experience that it can't be just assumed. The same way that I think that somebody who doesn't drink alcohol, but is involved in the comings and goings of normal everyday life in North America, could work for an alcohol company and relate to them and add value, but not drink alcohol. I don't agree to that to be the same in cannabis. I don't like to work with people that don't consume cannabis close directly. It's just hasn't worked out for me in the past. There's a connection to the plant that a daily cannabis user has that somebody that uses cannabis on Fridays, after they drive up to their cabin, it just doesn't have. And, to each their own, and everybody can do whatever they want to do. But for me, it's very easy to tell when a company is being guided by a real consumer versus a company that's being guided by an overpaid marketing team. And in Canada, the amount of money that, we raised and misspent, like, these fuck ups that are being made up in Canada are being made on massive scale.
Yeah. Which one was it that had the, put it right next to the airport and didn't put pre-filter?
Aurora. Pretty sure it was Aurora, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, put their huge, multiple 100,000 square foot facility directly next to airplane exhaust. So it was also jet fuel. So that was cool.
Yeah. Apparently jet fuel is not good for your weed.
Yeah,
Well,
jet
right?
fuel. So So does that mean you get like Ice Cube and he's like, yo, I heard you like some jet fuel, so we put some jet fuel on your jet fuel. It's like pimp my weed.
Jet fuel
Yeah,
terms.
there's a lot of mistakes being made up here.
Boost your phenols, right? Isn't that what that does? So what kind of what do you like to do as far as selecting for hash strains? You're a big hash fan. Your podcast is about extraction. What type of traits are you looking for as far as ones that are good for washing or good for extraction?
I'm looking for sandy glands that when I push my fingers together and pull them apart, create stringers, which let me know about oil content within that resin gland. I'm looking for open bud structure, or if it's closed bud structure, but I still have that that stringer from pressing my fingers to get my thumb and forefinger together after touching the cola. Then I just know that it's a little bit more work for me as I take the plant apart, as I prep it for freezing. So I'll have to open that closed bud structure up a little bit more. Whereas on more open bud structure, like a GMO, there's a little bit less work. And then I'm looking at the yield from the wash bin to full spec. So my 45 to my 160 or my 190, dependent. Like it's all dependent on the resin. And then I'm looking at the yield from the full spec dried hash to off the rosin press to see if it's better off to be left intact as a gland or created an oil as a rosin. And you know, I work with people that are way smarter than me and way better than me, and I talk to people that are way smarter than me and more talented than me, and I surround myself. You know, one of the best pieces of advice is, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I have been able to learn from so many really great people and help them along their way. So this is all knowledge that's been passed along to me, and I've been able to apply it and really kind of look at it both indoor and outdoor, and yeah, that would be what stands out to me. I've been trying to look for traits associated earlier in veg and earlier in flower, and I just don't think I have as much experience as some of the other guys. I know, you know, Mean Gene from Mendocino, when he's looking for OG plants and he's stem rubbing in veg, he's looking for like a pickle, a very pickly smell, a vinegar pickle smell, dill, and I haven't been able to associate any type of characteristic like that with resin. And I definitely have been surprised before where I thought something would do well and it didn't do as well. But more often than not, it's the latter, where I thought something wouldn't do well and it did. So I think that I just find mechanical separation of resin so completely fascinating. So I'm happy to talk about it forever. But the true and honest quick summary is a finger test to feel if you can feel sand, like a sand between your fingers. That's going to tell me that there's a thick waxy cuticle. And then if you can press those sandy heads and then pull them apart, and there's enough oil in them to make a stringer, and hold it up to the light, because sometimes they're hard to see, then that's something I really like. There's a gentleman named Simply Adam, who is a good buddy of mine, and he is has created a product called the Resin Dial. And I think if you can pull it up, Steve, this is a really cool product that he's designed to be able to take I don't know if it was Ken Wall who first developed this jar tech or who it was, but
This one or a different one?
no, if you can go to Instagram and then search Resin Dial, RESINDIAL, it's a really neat CNC machined stainless steel column that you're able to run a quantifiable amount of material through and then actually apply a bit of science to look for yield, because the traditionally the jar test was to take 10 grams of material, and yeah, there it is right there. A couple of videos he has. If you scroll down, that video right there, I think he takes it apart. But yeah, you can. This is going through the different screen sizes that are in the resin dial, and this is going through the prototype, but basically you're able to run the material through and catch different micron sized material at a very small amount of wash, which can tell you whether or not that plant is worth mechanically separating or not, and saving you a ton of time and a ton of money. So Simply Adam is somebody that if anybody's interested in resin should be following. He's constantly teaching, and he does the coffee and donuts show with Shiragam from the Hashishin, and is a resin class, and that guy is just awesome. I've got nothing but see, this is how it sits in a regular ball jar, and you're able to actually run the material through that jar to see what you're going to come out with, instead of just shaking some ice and some flour up in a jar and seeing what comes to the bottom. You're actually able to see, okay, what is actually coming out at what micron size. And so that's something that I would suggest to anyone seriously breeding or selecting for hash. This is something that would save you a lot of time and money, and it's going to be available at the end of the month. So give them a follow and place an order.
That is really cool. That's super awesome.
He's put a lot of thought into this, and there are guys who just can't stop thinking about resin, and they all find each other and just nerd out, and so it's a really collaborative environment. He's definitely a thought leader in our space, and we actually have a show. Usually the show that I do on YouTube is with myself and my two good friends and co-hosts, and then we usually just have one or one individual, or if it's a group, we have both individuals on. But there's been a debate in Canada because there's been very much a resurgence in traditional aged hashish, and there's been a conversation going on about pigment and how it relates to quality in resin, as far as a gland's exposure to oxygen and UV light and things of that nature. And so we're going to have Simply Adam and Kind Selections, Van Gyptian, a whole bunch of industry thought leaders on both the aged solventless, more traditional Frenchy school of thought side. Bird's going to be on there. And then we're going to have like Kind Selections, hopefully a few other big names in the solvent side, and we're just going to sort of hash it out, for lack of a better term, and talk about pigments and what we can kind of just try and find, like where do we agree to, and then what is just opinion. Because once you get to opinion, then it's kind of like, okay, well, this is cool that we all agree to this part, and then this is just a difference of opinion. So I think that the most important thing is for us to just keep talking and keep building our community. So yeah, check out the Resin Dial. If you're a hash maker and you don't know about Simply Adam, check out the Hashishin episodes. Check out Resin Dial. He's awesome, man. He's right there, bro. He's if you just below Resin Dial there, he's at Simply Adam right there. Yeah. He's he's got such cool macro shots. If you want to click on him and scroll down a little bit, if you keep going, below that one, yeah, the microscope shot. Yeah, if you click here, I think he's got a video of actual, if the next one over, it's a video. Yeah, I love what he's doing. He really takes it. He's got a video of oil actually leaking out of the basal cell, or the base of the gland of the trichome that's been freshly separated. And it just gives you a real idea of kind of what's happening. And then he really did his research. He went back into, like, I think he found some book in like Italian that referenced trichomes on a, that's what I'm talking about. This was a really cool image that he captured. And I thought, that gave me a real idea of what's happening in the water, and what's actually happening once that gland is severed from the base of that stalk. Very cool guy.
Yeah, that's super trippy.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. We'll have to see if we get him on sometime as well. That's super trippy.
I'll make the intro, man. I'm sure he'd love to come on, and he can take you down the rabbit hole of some really cool science stuff. Like he's deep, as deep as I've seen anybody go on trichome structure.
Yeah, it's really cool Instagram there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you have a whole bunch of other cool stuff here. You have green tech and environmental.
I recently started working with Green Tech Environmental. These guys, this is a family run business. This is a one, couple guy operation. And I first met Kevin Shale in like 2018, and he was going to MJ Biz, and we met on a plane. And he loves air filtration and is as obsessed with it as I am about, quality cannabis. And so we stayed in touch, and he got so busy during COVID because he has these machines that basically use an ultraviolet light that's reflected off 4 different proprietary alloys to create hydrogen peroxide at a very low level in the air. So not only is it sterilizing the air actively, but it's doing it passively and on surfaces. And so he became very busy during COVID. And then when COVID, ended or slowed down, his focus started switching back to cannabis. And I had just started my consulting company. And so we linked up as, good friends who knew we always wanted to work together. And I saw a tremendous opportunity for these units here in Canada. There's a competitive unit called the ProGuard that was very popular for a while here and was employed by a lot of facilities. And this is just a slightly better version or better mousetrap for less money and cost less to maintain. So this is a really cool unit for suppressing PM, and it's just something I've realized how important, my personal brand and reputation is. And so I don't associate myself with things lightly. And I've not only employed these things in my own cultivations, both in my home and in my medical cultivation and in my commercial cultivation out on the East Coast, but yeah, it's a technology that I think really helps with overall sanitation and prevention of airborne pathogens. I also they have a smoke suppression unit that is, I don't know if you can see it, just behind me, right here, and it's been running this whole time, and it's super quiet, and it has a MERV for, I'm not the technical guy, but it's able to completely keep my house very fresh smelling, and that's no small feat. It will actually clean up to 3,000 square feet, which is crazy for that unit. But and I've got it in a couple of head shops in Calgary, and my local head shops here, and they've got an upstairs place where they puff pretty tough, and they've loved it. So it's been cool working with those guys. I also work with so yeah, if you check those guys out, it's Green Tech Environmental Canada. If you have any questions about it, reach out to me. I'd love to talk, and if it's technical, I'll make sure I introduce you to Kevin. And they've got some really cool products. They've got this. Oh, this is a really cool product that I use in my grow. This is from them, and this is like O3, so it's safe, totally safe. You just fill it with water, and it creates ozone, and so it sterilizes surfaces in super short amounts of time. It'll kill any microbial or live any life on surfaces. Don't spray it on your plants unless you need to. But yeah, it's something that is low harmful and sterilizes and cleans. So I'm a big fan.
I wanted to give a quick shout out. Brendan Rust and myself and Jordan River from Growcast will be out at Gaiote's bar and restaurant tomorrow in Oklahoma City. We're going to bring a bunch of seeds with us and give out some seeds and hang out and smoke and have some food, have some beers. It'll be a good fun time. So definitely check that out if it's something that if you're in Oklahoma City or somewhere nearby. Come hang out tomorrow. We'll be out there for a couple hours.
So
yeah, we have a super awesome community out here. Oklahoma's got a lot of people that love to come out and hang. We actually did a meetup a month or two ago, and we had about 80 people show up. So
wow,
it was pretty badass. We were not expecting that many. That was cool though. We were happy to have them. So tell us about, you have also work with some rosin presses.
Yeah, there's a group out of Calgary actually here that I bought I think it was my second press from, and they manufacture, warranty. They've treated me really good from the start, and and I've been rocking with them ever since. And so I'm a big fan of the presses they put together. I've traveled across the countries with them. I've drove across the countries off bumpy roads with them and in boxes, and put them up on the table, and everything worked. And when I did have any issues, they were super fast to turn things around for me and get me taken care of. So I've got nothing but good things to say about these guys. And it's a father-son team, and that's the kind of groups that I like working with. I like working with family businesses that aren't a bunch of guys looking to get their third vacation home and sneak away to the golf course and whatever. It's just that's the people that I end up kind of attracting myself to. But yeah, if you need a rosin press in Canada, these guys are super awesome, and I'm happy to hook you up with them. And then, oh yeah, Jameson. So I also work with an awesome dude out on the East Coast. His tag is Farmer Jamie, but he has the Canadian rights to these testing machines. And so what the Jameson is it's a non-destructive testing machine that uses far red inflorescence, I believe, and don't quote me on it, but to assess the THC, CBD, CBG, and water content. Yeah, near infrared spectrometer. Yeah, NIRS. So so this is a super valuable tool for me, because if I do cure my cannabis for smoke for my head, and I do keep a little bit of a head stash, I want to watch my water activity. And water activity meters are like I think the cheapest one is like $12,000 to $15,000, and I, maybe I'm wrong, but they're not cheap, and so this was a really cool product for me because I not only was able to test THC levels, which in any new burgeoning market is very important. Canadians pretty much in the legal space exclusively value cannabis on THC levels. Whether that's right or not, I'm not here to debate that. That's not right, but that's what it is. And so I was introduced to this machine 4 years ago and was very skeptical about it. And there was 3 or 4 other machines that were introduced at the same time. And this is the only machine that still remains. And I just recently started working with these guys. I have a unit that's sitting on my desk here that I test a lot of the cannabis that comes in. What I'm finding personally is it tests about 4%, consistently about 4% lower than the labs up here in Canada. So if something tests on the Jameson at 20, I'm typically seeing it at 24, 25. And so as long as I'm seeing that consistently. So it's a very valuable tool for me. I know I'll be sending a unit down to Emerald Mountain down to Emerald Mountain for them to use in some of their selections, because some people, it's very important to have high THC, and so selections are definitely being influenced by that. And so to have this unit is a really cool tool for somebody who's involved in this industry. And so again, if you want to reach out to me about this, I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can and put you in touch with Emilio. Emilio is the man, and if Jameson ever watches this, you need to pay that man more money. That kid is your golden goose. But yeah, these are really cool machines, and it's cool because it's a non-destructive test, right? So like you can test it and then you can smoke it, or you can test it and then you can be like, I'm going to send this exact bud to the lab and smoke it. And every other test that I'm seeing is a destructive test, and like you got different guys with different SOPs. Like some guys just cut a bud off or take a bud out of the bag and send it in for testing. Well, that whole bud, including the stem inside it, gets tested, gets ground up and tested. And then some people are like, oh, well, I know that whatever I give you gets ground up and tested, so I'm actually going to I'm going to break apart and remove the stem from the flower and send it to you. And so, right off the bat there, you're not comparing apples to apples. And I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. I'm just saying that we're not comparing apples to apples. And if you give an opportunity for money motivated people or any people to gamify a system, they're going to gamify it. And if your only quality marker is THC levels and it's a self-submission to the THC level, you're going to have a messed up system. Like what Canada should have done is, instead of inserting themselves into the distribution chain as the distribution hub for every province, they should have been the single tester of all cannabis cultivated in Canada. And so every fucking piece is judged on the same PCR machine or the same 20 PCR machines. And then that would create an even playing field. But of course, they didn't, and that's the way it is. And so there's no sense crying over spilt milk, but wouldn't it be nice, right?
Well, it's strange to me that they still haven't gotten the standards figured out, because like that is one of the biggest problems with the US market, is that there is no federal standards or even so like, and why this matters. And when we say standards, we're talking about what they use to calibrate the machines. It's a different definition of standards. I think a lot of people think about. We're not talking about like a set of SOPs. We're talking about a pure chemical that they can purchase from the government, from a government supplier that is a universal standard for all of those chemicals. So you can buy pure, for instance, you can buy pure cocaine, THC, CBD, CBG, all these things from the DEA. There's 2 DEA suppliers that are certified in the United States for calibration on that stuff. But there's no like requirement that the people calibrating these machines purchase from those 2 suppliers. They can purchase from wherever the fuck they feel like they can get their shit from. And that's part of the problem you have with all these labs and why you have such schizophrenic stuff, and it's only in the lab's best interests to boost the numbers a little. So they're going to get more customers, or people will stop using them if the numbers are lower than this other lab, and that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. I've got, it's a mess up here in Canada. I've got a good buddy who's part of a good lab that I'd be happy to introduce you to have on your show, because, he's super educated in what's going on in the lab space up here. And, it's a bit of a shit show for sure.
For sure. Absolutely. You had a super cool dab temperature thingy. Can you show everybody that, or do you want to talk about that? Yeah. Tell us about that. That's super cool. I'll pull that up.
I've got a couple of them.
There's
a few different versions of these dab temperature. One's called a terp. One's called the temp tech, and one's called the dab right. And then there's also a unit that's called the Octave, and it's a desktop unit that shines a laser at up at whatever temperature. But when you're dabbing concentrates that, like hash rosin, which is typically very difficult to attain and of a very high quality, you're dealing with volatile, you're vaporizing volatile organic compounds, and at certain temperatures those volatile organic compounds convert into benzene, and benzene is a carcinogen and it's very harmful. And what benzene does is it actually attacks and kills the bronchioli of your lungs. And so it's really important for you to dab at the right temperature. And so these units are very expensive, but they allow you to dab at a repeatable, create a repeatable experience for yourself, so that you're able to go back and have an enjoyable experience each time. And the difference between 50 degrees is dramatic when you are dabbing. And so this is something that I'll travel with, wherever I go. Even if I'm flying somewhere and a friend's bringing me their rig and I'm not flying with a rig, I'll travel with my dab right, so that I know what temperatures I'm dabbing at. And yeah, for any concentrate consumer who smokes out of a rig and either uses the bottom of their wrist or a timer, to each their own. But every once in a while that doesn't work, and you suffer the consequences, and these make that possibly less. So I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of concentrates. Definitely cannabis has had an incredibly positive impact on my life, and so yeah, I'm that's a daily tool. That's like phone, wallet, keys, dab right.
Yeah, those are definitely interesting. So what is your favorite type of extract? What is your go-to? Is it the hash rosin, or is it something else?
No, I think it'd be full melt. I think it would be just, the resin in its most purest form. I think that it's the difficulty in attaining it, maintaining it, and then actually smoking it, and then the cleanup from it that makes rosin more attractive to me as an everyday thing. If somebody was serving me dabs, I'd love to be served just dabs of melt over and over and over, and I can hand them back a dirty rig and they can go clean it. But if I'm doing it, I'm able to experience more dabs faster with rosin, and I enjoy that convenience as well. So I go back and forth, but if it was just a pure experience basis, I feel as though the waxy coating of the resin gland acts as kind of like a guide and a prevention from dabbing too hot. so that it kind of delivers, like it'll be immediately apparent to you if you're dabbing melt too hot. It will not be apparent to you if you're dabbing rosin too hot. And so melt kind of has those safety wheels on it. And the high that I get from melt is more three-dimensional than the high that or the effect that I get from most rosin. I get closer to that, high school experience when I smoke melt. It's more stronger medication.
So when you say that, are you talking about like 6-star hash or?
Yeah, I'm talking about, like 5 and 6 star where, you're using.
Can you explain to people that don't know what 5 and 6-star hash is so that?
I will get some.
Thank you. So for those of you that aren't aware, so 5-star hash is just really, really good, well-washed hash. That's just trichome heads that's been separated out, usually 73 micron or 90 micron, sometimes 120 micron, but usually the 73 and 90 only for most people. And then 6-star is when they separate it with electrostatic separation, which is a whole other process, which I'm sure he's about to explain to us far better than I can. So
this is just a little bit, and it's a little greased up, but that's what isolated resin heads look like. And it's basically like beach sand. And if you're able to keep this quote unquote beach sand cold, it will remain in that state of a number of very dry resin heads. Now, if you expose these heads to longer periods of increased temperatures, they will start to grease and melt together and create much more of a really thick concrete consistency. And resin this is typically left to only makers. It's very hard to transport. It's very hard to carry. There's a few Kaya in Washington, he does sell some melt and you're able to cold chain it, but this is the type of material that you wouldn't be able to access in the Canadian legal space just due to unable to cold chain. So there's a number of ways to clean the resin after you've dried it. One of the most popular ways is static sifting, where you're positively charging you're taking a piece of wax paper and wrapping it around a DVD case and attaching a positive charge just by rubbing it against, a clean piece of cloth, and then pulling the heads from out of the particulate through static charge, and then taking a paintbrush and separating those from the contaminant. And so that is something that is pretty much the top of the mountain as far as my opinion of concentrate consumption. And it takes a long while to get there. I always feel bad for somebody who gives somebody their first dab and it's melt. I kind of feel like you're setting themselves up for disappointment. Like I would much rather have my first dab be shatter or some soupy butane than melt, because there's the joy of exploration is kind of taken away from you. But there's always, that quest for better. And it's something that, it's a community that I've found that I've incredibly aligned with, and you're always looking for the better, the new flavor and the new effect. And and then there's some schools of thought. Like I talk to a lot of makers that completely think the opposite, and they're like, squish it, like I don't want to deal with it. I don't want it. I want it squished out into oil. And if it's that good melt, it'll make that good of rosin, and I've got a lot of good friends who think that way. And so it's definitely a personal preference thing. There's a bit more of a traditional process to smoking, like a flag of melt than rosin. But yeah, it's really to each their own.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of 6 Star. It's just very, again, like you're saying, extremely hard to come by.
Yeah,
unless you make it yourself.
Yeah.
But always one of my favorite things that usually gets broken out at the Regen conferences, which is the nice thing.
I guarantee this year, like when we go to Maine, it'll be big time. Like Mission Hill Melts is a good friends of mine, and they're going to be out in full force, and Symbiosis Solventless, and like I feel like Maine's going to be crazy. Like Maine is filled with heads. Like the amount of fire people I've met just through like my show and connecting with people is in Maine is I'm really excited.
There's also a lot of people from what's it called, Boston, and other parts of the New England as well. So there's people from New Hampshire and Vermont and all over. So it's always a really fun time. Even people from New York are coming up, and it's not that much fun. It's like 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours from New York City, and it's 12 hours of like, and 3 flights for me to get there. I was like, what? I was surprised. For some reason I thought it was closer to Toronto, but I guess I fly Toronto, New York, and then New York, Portland. But I'm stoked. I can't wait. Like I was just talking to the guys out there today, and I just rented a house right by the farm, so I'm not even as far as you guys are at the hotel, because Dutch told me where the hotel was, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna find a closer place. Hotel's like 25 minutes away. it is what it is. I know it's definitely in a more remote area for sure.
Oh,
But it's a weed farm, if my memory serves me correctly, isn't it?
it's definitely a farm of some kind. I'm very excited.
Hold on, I will pull this up here for everybody. You guys can check it out here for Maine. There we go. We'll be out in Dresden, Maine. So it'll be a good time. You get seeds from it. Josh is the root beer crossed with Lime River Reserve. Really, really awesome seeds. And then we have a really awesome lineup of speakers, tons of local breeders, huge seed swap on Sunday. We all bring stuff. Kevin brings stuff. I bring stuff. Josh brings stuff. Everybody brings seeds. So it's a good time. And then we also have Oklahoma as well, at the end of end of April. April 29th and May 1st. You can get more information on that at regenerativeorganiccannabis.com. Take you right to the link to the Regen conferences.
I'd love it. You should go. Anybody thinking about going, you should go. It'll be a ton of fun.
Yeah, just look at any of the replies on any of the posts from anyone that was there. You posted quite a bit about it. I posted quite a bit. Everyone that was there basically did. It was just a really wonderful conference, and just a really positive community out there in Michigan. Really can't emphasize that enough on the environment there. Wow, look at that.
So that's a flag of 5 star, but it's pretty clear. Like, I mean, the camera doesn't do it justice, but it's you could probably read some letters through it. So it's definitely nice.
Right.
But yeah, what about you, Steve? Like, what are you working on in what's taking up most of your time these days?
I've been just working on a couple of different estimates. There's a facility I'm working with in Oregon that's going to be both cannabis and medicinal mushrooms, and I'm doing a hybrid system for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll take the CO2 from the mushroom rooms and pump it down to the cannabis, because the mushrooms will be upstairs and the weed will be downstairs. So that's pretty cool. And then I have the farm in Georgia is about to be fully online, so that'll be awesome. Gearing up for the summer, we'll have some outdoor and some indoor there, and the greenhouses. So that'll be a lot of fun. I really enjoy spending time out there in Georgia. It's a really beautiful place, and probably one of the prettiest places in the country, up there in Rabun County. It's a really really, there isn't a lot of old forest left out on the East Coast, and it's really, some of the last southern old forests. So it's really, really nice up there. Super stoked on that. And then, so working with a group in Argentina right now. So that's pretty cool. And then some Caribbean projects, one down in Westmoreland. I'll be down there too at some point this summer as well. So in Jamaica. So all over. And then also South Africa, the group I'm working with in South Africa just got some new owners that they got purchased by another company, but they're wanting to build like a 200,000 square meter aquaponics facility in South Africa now, and really gear up. It's going to be, obviously not this year. It's going to take a couple of years to build out, but they're doing really expanding the facility down there and doing some cool stuff. So yeah, I don't know, all kinds of crazy shit right now.
That's awesome.
Do you have any when you do a lot of breeding as well, correct?
No, I'm around breeders, but I mean, other than a few pollinations, I wouldn't call myself a breeder. No.
Okay, I apologize. So tell us more about your show and some of the different topics you've covered to date on your podcast. When you're done, you're dad.
Absolutely.
What about you, Wes? Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention real quick while he's dabbing?
Nothing particularly, but come over and check out Fumidor's show on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. I'm over there giving a hand, and over here sometimes now.
Yeah. Fumidor.
Yeah, no, I met Fumi. I'm down. I'm definitely stoked to check out his show. It was super great to meet him over the weekend.
Yeah, it's a little bit different a show. It's like hanging out at the bar with your friends and discussing a little bit of everything. It's a different show. It's different.
Totally.
It's good.
Totally.
Like I was explaining, we talked about, actually it was Fumi that taught me about the Olga of Kiev with the sparrows and the doves. For anyone that doesn't know, Olga of Kiev was this really badass lady back in the medieval times, and she was besieging a city somewhere near Ukraine. And they had the city completely surrounded, and they had it, there was a siege for a while. And then she was like, well, I'll let you give up if you give me 3 sparrows and 3 doves or whatever from each household. So like, cool, we can totally do that. Like, if that's all you want, that's cheap. Like, we thought you wanted like gold or women or weapons or whatever. We can totally do the birds. So they give all the birds over, and there were ones that were nesting in town or that knew that it would go back to the town for safety. So they tied string to them that had pitch and tar and sulfur on it, and set them on fire and let them loose. And they went back and started a firestorm and burned the whole city down. So it was like, pretty badass. The Ukrainians have been, badass motherfuckers for a long time. Even the women.
Yeah, no, the show started out as just a thought. I during COVID lockdown, I had made some good friends on Clubhouse, which is just like this chat room app that you kind of find like-minded individuals. And the idea moved from off Clubhouse onto YouTube as sort of a virtual sesh, as I'm good friends with one individual who's in British Columbia, and then another individual who's in Toronto. And so we just wanted to get together, and we were already doing these Google Hangouts and things like that. And we thought, the conversation we have is pretty high level, and luckily enough, our network is good enough where we think we could get some guests on. And so it started out, and I think our first guest was Colin Palmer from Vessel Life Science. Shout out Colin for being a real G. I've known Colin for a few years just through Hash Church and I think Clubhouse too. And we kind of just clicked on a number of levels. And so Colin came on, and talked about what he was doing in New York State, in Maine. He'll be at the Regen conference in Maine. I just remembered that. So I'm super stoked to see him there. Give him a big hug. And then, yeah, after that, we had Chaz Walters on, who's like this super, super talented dude who's just like a sleeper in Canada right now. And he worked in Cali and Washington. He knows Dutch pretty well. And he is up in Canada, chilling with his wife and you know, skiing Whistler and trying to figure out his next move. But that dude's a super talented hash maker and grower and just about it. And what was next? I mean, we've just got and next was Shiragam, and after Shiragam, from the Hashishin, because you know, I'm the kind of guy I always want to know about people's backstories too. And I listen to everything the Hashishins ever put out, and I just never knew about Shiragam. And so it was really cool to like interview him and learn more about his story. And immediately we kind of got tapped in with his people and started interviewing guys like Simply Adam and met Mission Hill Melts, and we're just having good people on and talking about, you know, our different paths in resin. And I went down to Hall of Flowers and Emerald Cup last year, and you know, connected with so many good people down there, and you know, talked about doing a show, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. So I got a bunch of people from the Cali market on, and it was cool because we do like an episode and it'd be a small, not a small, but just a traditional market Canadian guy, and then the week after it'd be like a larger scale legal market Cali group or you know, a group from out east in Maine. And so we pop all over and really just kind of tell the stories of individuals who are actually, you know, making something, touching the plant, creating. You know, I think those people really get pushed to the side, and sometimes in legal cannabis. And so those are the people that I want to hear from and talk to. And so it's been really cool, and it's been something like I've gotten used to doing, you know, where if I don't do it and I'm traveling, I'll miss it. And so we did Ross Kaya Paul, I think I mentioned yesterday, and we're doing Real Deal Resin next week. And then we've got a local Canadian guy, Steve Solventless. And then right after that, we're doing we're bringing on the Brian Tist, who's the lead processor at Heritage Mendocino, which is like a really cool hash focused company, headed up by Cherry Blossom Bell, out of Ukiah and or Ukiah, but yeah, it's been cool getting to talk about your passion, and you know, at some point everything stops feeling like, you know, work, and it's just, you know, you're talking about what you love and what you do. And so yeah, it's been cool, man. But I think we're episode 22, so nowhere near. I think you said 277 today or something. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just 279.
That's wild. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, it's fucking crazy to me. In fact, in 2 weeks will be 6 years that we've been doing the show. So yeah, it's pretty wild. Definitely didn't think, like, we've had all these cool guests that never thought I'd get a chance to talk to way back then, and now half of them I'm, you know, lucky enough to call friends. So
yeah, no, it's all about, for sure. I've met some really cool people on the show. So
do you have any other advice for people that want to get into extraction, especially people that just want to get started? Maybe good resources for learning about you know, the different methods for people that are maybe just getting going with their first couple grows?
Sure, yeah. My advice for people get going with their first couple grows is don't get caught up in like analysis paralysis. Don't get paralyzed by watching all the YouTube videos and reading all the books and just do it. you're going to make mistakes, and you're not going to YouTube video yourself out of these mistakes. You're just going to have to make them. Yes, there's stuff you can learn and watch out for, but just start. I see a lot of people like waiting way too long to crack their first beans because they're like, I've just got to read more, get everything right. And it's so complicated. And I think you just have to do it, and nothing's going to be perfect your first time. My advice for hash makers is learn how to work with less than desirable material, and you will be very, very successful and never need to look for a job. A lot of hash makers take the stance that they're just messengers of the plant, and just if the resin is their reflection of the grower and how well the plant was grown, and that's very true. And I'm not arguing with that, but I definitely think that if you are familiar with resin and how resin works, you should be actively researching and working with older, less desirable material to see what form factors and products you can create with that. And I think that skill set will be very valuable for you in the future. And then my advice to anybody just trying to get into the industry that's feeling like it's overwhelming and there's no way in, like it's a brick wall and it's just like there's me and it's on the other side. Like write down and diarize where you want to be or what you want to be doing, and then put that away for 6 to 12 months and take whatever job you can get in the industry, because the industry is so rapidly changing that horizontal integration from one company to the next is very commonplace. And so it's such a young industry that if I see somebody's resume and they were here for 3 months and they were there for 4 months and then they were there for 6 months and then they were there for 8 months, I don't red flag that at all. I look at that almost as somebody who knows their value and is always looking for the next opportunity. And, you know, somebody I might have to pay more attention to as far as making sure I keep them happy if I want to keep them around. But
and one of the biggest problems you see in the cannabis industry is just failure of management or just shitty management that doesn't know how to, like, I can't fix that if the owners are just stuck in their ways or management stuck in their ways and won't listen to what they need to succeed. Yeah. If I repeat myself till I turn blue, like what, you can only do that so many times before you just need to move on.
Yeah. I think that, and don't cast pearls in front of swine. It's something that really resonated with me in this industry, is that if people aren't listening to you, shut the fuck up, stop talking. And if you're not, if they are listening to you and you're not being valued for that, shut the fuck up, stop talking. Don't talk. Just, if you're invited on a facility tour and you see something, don't point it out, just observe it. And if they're not willing to pay for your knowledge, then, that's their own fault. We give away a lot as passionate people around the plant because we just love it so much that it's and it's almost a little bit like, I want to prove that even though I've got a beard and longer hair, but I add value to you. And there was a long time where I was in this, I want to show you that even though I look like this, I can add value. And it takes a little while to grow out of that, but, and we're all guilty of it at some point, but after a while, you learn from older people telling you, keep your mouth shut on tours, don't give away, what you would charge for, and understand that these people will charge you for the same thing. It's not the same as when you're dealing with somebody you might have met at the Regen conference and you visit their farm and you're like, hey man, I've been studying this for the last 10 years and I want to tell you that I'm going to save you a bunch of time here on your farm because I know you're a real person. This is these are big businesses and these people are business people, and if there's an advantage to be taken, they're going to take it, and they're not going to feel bad about it when they lay their head on the pillow at night. They're going to tell their friends about it, about how much they fucked this kid over, this hippie kid, and they're going to be stoked. It's just a different group of people. So you need to be viscerally aware of, you know, who you're dealing with and what information you're sharing, because you're doing yourself a disservice talking most of the time.
Great advice for sure. Yeah. And again, a lot of us have been through the ringer, and it's half the battle of dealing with the industry is just
I've yet to meet a real cannabis person who doesn't have a few major scars, you know what I mean? Because we just love it so much that we're willing to, you know, maybe overlook a few things to make something work. And, you know, ultimately we learn that those things can't be overlooked, but you know, we definitely have to learn ourselves in one way or another. We get got one way or another.
Yeah, you got to be at least a little bit jaded, or you feel right.
I always, when I first got involved, I always was like, why are these guys so grumpy? And then I understood. Oh man, so yeah, I see it every year more and more. But I want to be a part of that positive change, and I think I am. You know, trying to move that dial every day, and you know, couldn't imagine being anywhere else or doing anything else. So I know where I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. Do you have any favorite cultivars as far as ones you like to work with for extraction or washing?
I kind of like, you know, for me, it's always funk, rank, even gas, but more funk than gas. There's some stuff like these I-95 crosses from Green Team that I've heard produce a really unique like decay profile that I know I'm attracted to. So yeah, like for me, I'm always looking for you know, those rank offensive terps that maybe aren't for everybody, but you know, if you love them, you love them. So you know, that I'm naturally attracted to GMO. There was a group out in the interior here in BC who did a GMO back cross, or I think they S1'd it, opened it up, called it OMG, and they came out with some really cool profiles on that GMO side that I hadn't tried before. Other cultivars that have really been impressive for me. I mentioned the Fruit Joy, and the Banana OG is something that I like as a daily driver. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff from Bloom that I've looked at as far as like some of the fruit, and the San Sauchi is a pretty interesting terp profile that I'm definitely going to be running again. I've got, Banana Runts is from Soulfire, is something that a friend of mine is looking through right now. I had that before and really enjoyed that artificial candy banana terp. Not something I would want to exclusively smoke, but definitely something I would like to have on the table. And then, you know, like I love a good sour diesel, and you know, an OG Kush. I'm more of a classic guy. I don't need the candy gas. I don't mind it as long as the gas is forward on it and the candy is back. But yeah, for me, like an OG for flower, and then a GMO for hash is kind of what I would really gravitate to, as far as like, I'm, you know, somebody who consumes a significant amount of cannabis, so I need something strong to feel it.
Do you have any other advice for people getting into the Canadian market that are either getting in on the micro license scale, or even in the, you know, just involved in the industry in general? It seems like you've had a lot of experience up there. Do you have anything you want to tell people as far as the market up there, or working in the market?
I think that if you're getting involved on the micro side, you need to identify, solidify, and work towards owning your distribution channel to market. Because if you are just growing weed and selling it to somebody who's branding it and then owns and possesses that sales channel, they have all the leverage, and it's just a matter of time before they begin to squish you. And we've seen it in almost every other industry where the farmer is the first to feel pressure. And I would urge anybody who's starting a microprocessor or cultivation or anything to go on Netflix and go to Rotten, the series, and watch the Purdue chicken episode, because I believe that we are headed towards a Purdue chicken event, in not as much of an event as just a scenario in cannabis. And what I mean by that, if you don't want to go watch it, is that Purdue chicken doesn't grow or it doesn't farm a single chicken. So what they do is they have two revenue streams. They have the chicken meat sales, and they have the financing that they offer to chicken farmers that want to set farms up. And what they do is they drop off the genetics, the chicks at the start of the growing cycle, and they give the farmers feed for the chicks, and they reward and they give them acceptable number of losses for when pickup comes. And then they send the they send the trucks to come pick up the chickens when they're fully grown, and they pick up any remaining feed that the farmers didn't feed to the chickens. And the chickens are then weighed, and the feed is then weighed, and the farmers are remunerated on a sliding scale based upon how little feed they used comparatively to how much chicken meat they produced. And so the person that used the least feed and produced the heaviest chickens gets the highest dollar per value for his chicken, whereas the person who used the most feed for the lowest weighing chicken gets the lowest dollar per value. And this is a very aggressive sliding scale. And none of those farms are Purdue farms. They all have their own names and their own stories and their own families, but none of them get recognized. And so they have no leverage, and they end up getting squeezed and pushed out. And there's a lot of sad stuff that happens in industries like that. And so we're barreling towards that in cannabis, and we have to recognize that and decide where we want to stand. And if you want to stand with the small guys, we need to figure out how we're going to protect our path to market. Because if you think that growing quality weed without a brand is enough, it is for a while, but it's not forever. You need that brand. And so that's my advice, is that congratulations, you have a license. Congratulations, you're growing weed. Congratulations, you're doing what you want to do. And unfortunately, you're going to have to continue moving forward, and you're going to have to solidify and own that path to market and your brand to feel comfortable and sleep at night. Otherwise, you're just growing chickens for Purdue.
That's definitely a great point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
And that's for the micros. And then for big business, it's respect that, respect that you don't know what you don't know, and respect that, show me another legal industry that has had a magazine that grew year over year for 40 years during Prohibition. There was no heroin monthly or anything like that. And this is a culture that's been going on for a long time. And, when these C-suites just don't even acknowledge the sacrifices people have made, the time people have put in, the energy, the effort of the culture that's been created around this, it's disrespectful to us. It's deeply disrespectful, and it just creates a bigger divide between you and I. And you, the C-suite, is just as responsible as us for meeting you guys halfway. And we both need to exist in this industry, but we need respect. And if that means that there has to be a generational purge, that, you know, there's some stodgy old white guys that won't respect me because I don't wear a collared shirt, then we're just going to wait it out, because I'm not going to put on a collared shirt. But it's always, I think, put on us. And yeah, exactly. It's all, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Steve. You made your decision a long time ago. It's always put on us, I think. And I think that you need to understand how integral we are to this. And the more you push us away, the more sterilized your cannabis will become, and the more the divide will happen. And you know, that's not necessarily what anybody wants. And so I think that there's a symbiotic relationship that needs to be formed here between the roots and the suits, but there needs to be a level of respect that flows both ways. And right now we're not feeling that level of respect.
I think that was a very great way to put it. And I also don't appreciate the value of people that have, you know, are very plugged into the industry or have a lot of experience growing lots of plants. You know, they're just like, oh, we can get another one. It's like, yeah, but there's only a few people that have grown really at large, truly large scales. Yeah. And they don't understand that at all.
Oh, we'll just get a tulip grower. I know a really good tulip grower, you know.
Or we'll just get somebody with a PhD in botany or something. It's like, yeah, but they've never grown cannabis. They don't understand this plant, you know.
Oh man, the amount of facilities in Canada that I've seen that are built to, you know, just race car standards, where if you put competent cultivators in, they would be growing bumper crops. And you put PhD scientists in there, and it is just, you know, PM ridden, just, you know, because you just don't know what to look for. And you know, these mistakes get made, and eventually, you know, these companies get righted. But I just think that there needs to be a little bit more understanding, between the two parties. Like, you know, that's what I'm getting.
I feel like organic natural farming now almost has a better idea of what's going on as far as, you know, competitive exclusion with microbes and just overall plant health in a large, especially polyculture environments where you're growing different types of crops or cover crops and things. They don't even understand half of that stuff. And trying to explain to someone who's trying to teach you, well, I learned in this book, and it's like, yeah, but like that's old teachings. Like, you know, everything's changed so much because we've had access to ability to test a lot of this stuff so much more in the last, you know, 10, 20, 30 years and quantify this in whole new ways that we just simply didn't have access to, that was cheap, you know. And we're about to have a whole second revolution with that as well, as far as DNA testing. You know, we're going to be able to test, you know, what microbes are in my soil and put it in a little container and plug it into your computer or your cell phone and have an analysis of it in, you know, a couple of hours here before too long. And you know, you can get that now on the little bit more on the expensive side, but that's going to come down in price quickly because of the, you know, the current world events as far as viruses going on. You know, it really made that technology, it kind of forced the technology to come down in price, and it's going to benefit agriculture immensely here very shortly. Super excited about that, and something I think is going to help us unlock a lot of the secrets that we haven't had a chance to, you know, stuff that I thought might take, you know, 50 or 100 years. I think maybe if we crowdsource it, we could figure this out in 10 or 20, you know. Maybe I'm overly optimistic.
It's the same thing with genetics, right? Like, I mean, like, how are we, at some point you got to look at it like music and sampling music. And so, you know, dependent on how it works out, once that technology becomes more available, you're really going to be able to, basically what I think is going to happen is a line is going to be drawn in the sand, and they're going to say anything predating this work is not applicable to these new laws we're going to put in. And if that pisses anybody off, too fucking bad. And everything from this date onward is going to fall under this very similar to a music licensing type style. And I feel as though we're not very close to that, as far as do I think that that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? No, but the next 10 to 20 years, yes. I think that, you know, genetics is changing quickly. There's some interesting patents that have already been placed that I think will create some very interesting scenarios in the future. But ultimately, I think it's going to be music sampling and you know, being able to secure plant breeders' rights on things is probably pretty valuable. I think it's very difficult and it's a bit of a moving target, but it's very valuable.
Absolutely. Is there any other things that you wanted to talk to us about as far as genetics and plants? You seem to know quite a bit down that space.
I'm trying to think. I think we've kind of covered it. I mean, you know, I think if you're, oh yeah, I do. I absolutely do. A lot of people have spent a lot of time in the legacy, traditional, whatever you want to call it, markets, pheno hunting, really great varietals. And when they test their varietals through a COA, they those varietals are testing at like 18 to 22%. Don't get rid of those. Those are really, really good. They're super valuable. They're just not valuable right now. In the Canadian market, anything over or anything that doesn't hit above 22%, it doesn't have any leverage to garner a top of market price per gram. And so right now, companies are only interested in THC levels. I believe that will change. It might take 10 years, but it will change. And if your thing is special enough, it won't be valued right now, but it will be valued later on. I believe, you know, Jackson or Mean Gene to be one of the best breeders out there, but his gear doesn't hit high numbers. He doesn't breed, he breeds for love of the plant. He breeds for, you know, flavor and effect, not for, he's not reading TA, he's not checking COAs. And so if you have some of his gear, probably, and you're like thinking about popping it in the legal space, personally, I'd hold off, because I think that there's going to be a time when it's way better and more valuable to you to look through it. Genetics are like fashion. Genetics are like music. It's cyclical. It moves in a cycle. And it is something that you need to understand, or you need to hire somebody that understands and that can kind of understand where we're at in that cycle, where we're going, what's coming up next, and what's in the future. And so, you know, my advice is, if you've got something special and you know it's special and you're being told it's not special by some suit, that does not mean it's not special. You just have to wait. My other piece of advice is that if anybody tells you that building your brand, whether you're in the legal or traditional market, isn't valuable, they're wrong. If anybody ever tells you that that brand won't be, your brand image or whatever you're building won't be worth anything ever, they're wrong. Just because something isn't worth something right now in a very fast changing market doesn't mean it won't be valuable in 3 years. When we first legalized in Canada, there was absolutely no way a legacy or traditional brand would have any kind of path to a legal Canadian consumer. And now today, well-established traditional brands who operated and moved correctly are beating away offers with sticks. And so it's all about timing and knowing what you have. So that would be my advice.
We've kept you for quite a long time. I don't want to keep you the whole night. I'm sure you have other better things to do than sit around and talk with me. But I do appreciate you coming on the show. It's really great to have you. I'm glad to get you on, have you tell us all about the cool stuff that you're doing and all the awesome work that you've been up to. And really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Let me pull up your links again so people know how to find you here.
Yes, thanks so much for having me on, Steve. It was great reconnecting with you, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you again real soon. And yeah, this is me. If you want to reach out, absolutely. I make myself pretty available to everyone and pretty public. So.
And he also has the Fire is Fire podcast.
Check out Fire is Fire, like and subscribe. We stream on Dutch's channel as well. So we also stream on the Regenerative Cannabis channel, just to kind of get it out there and get our viewership up. And we really appreciate Dutch for that. But yeah, we've check out the show. We like it. I hope you like it. And yeah, thank you so much for both of you for having me on. I really appreciate your time.
And he's got his Instagram for Fire is Fire.
Instagram.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And he'll be out at the Regen conference in Maine. So will I. A whole bunch of others. I heard Brendan Rust is going to be out there now. So it's going to be fun times.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, man.
Wes,
Definitely looking forward to listening to your podcast.
Absolutely, brother. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Nice meeting you, man.
Well, that was awesome. He was a great guest.
He was a great guest.
Really fun guy. Really awesome dude in person, and really knowledgeable on a wide range of stuff. So super cool to have him on the show. Very wise guy on the Canadian market for sure.
Awesome.
How are you doing, Wes?
Great, man. Doing awesome.
And how's your garden?
Garden's doing great. Got some Mendo Bendo coming down. Got some Oaxacan Thai on flower. Got some black garlic from Jordan of the Island flowering as well. Got some.
What's Oaxacan Thai doing?
Doing really well. It's doing really well. Just like it's only probably 3 weeks into flower, and it was just setting when I left. I haven't seen it in a week or so. The wife's taking care of it, so it's going to be doing great.
Cool.
Amen.
Just been busy. Jordan River was here yesterday. We had a cool episode yesterday with Mean Gene and Mendocino. We have another episode on Monday with Scotty Reel of Dude Grows. So that'll be a lot of fun. They're going to be talking to us about his grow beads and some of his other stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. Scotty is I think Scotty might have the record for most number of times on the show in terms of guests. That isn't a panelist, but he's a good friend of mine. I always love hanging out with him and hanging out up in Colorado or any of the cups. I've been to most of the cups now. I think I only missed one or two of the Dude Grows Cup, so that's always fun. And yeah, trying to think anything else coming up. All kinds of cool guests. And then next Thursday, we have the director of aquaculture for UC Davis, California. So that's going to be really awesome. He's a super, super cool guy. A chance to connect with him at the Aquaponics Association conference. Took me a minute to remember which one. So many conferences now. So that'll be a really great guest. He's super knowledgeable on a crazy amount of different topics, especially aquaponics, but as well as he also works with a group that does abalones, urchins, and kelp, and they grow them all in the same system. It's super cool in different chambers and all kinds of cool trippy stuff. So definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, definitely check out the Regenerative Conference coming up in Maine at the end of March, regenerativeorganiccannabis.com. And then also, let me throw the flyer up again. Tomorrow, Brendan Rust, myself, and Jordan River will be out at Gayote's Bar and Grill in Oklahoma City. You got the address there if you want to check it out. From 4:20 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. Be a good time. We'll have some seeds to give away. A bunch of other cool stuff. So come out, hang out, smoke with us, have a beer, have a sandwich. It's good times.
That'd be cool. Cool.
They got gluten-free, dairy-free, vegetarian, all the things. So
nice. Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, there's a lot of good community out here in Oklahoma City, so it'll be a lot of fun. Alrighty, how do people find you, Wes?
You can find me on over at the Chronic Table Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Brews with Buds on Saturdays. And you can find me on Instagram under Wesingine. Thanks for having me again, Potent.
You can check out Fumidor's channel, Fumidor and the Flavors.
Yeah, man.
And then you can find me and Marty's class over at apmjclass.com. We have a couple hundred or 700 plus slides now on there with new content each month, 2 live sessions and a bunch of other cool stuff. So check it out. It's a cool, really great class. Try to have a lot of really great, unique content, tons of disease guides and all kinds of cool stuff on there. So really helpful if you're getting into home or commercial. And then we're also available on your favorite podcast app. Or if you're looking for nutrients for Aquaponic Cannabis System, you can find that at APCannaNewts or apmjnewts.com for that. And you can find us on your favorite podcast app, APMJ. Growing with Fishes podcast on your favorite podcast app. We're on basically everything: Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all the things. So, all right, guys. We had a blast. Really great guest tonight, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Hope to see anyone that's out there in Oklahoma City, and then if not, I'll see you guys on Monday.